The thing that's caused me to watch less YouTube is the content that's been recommended to me within the last 2 months has been the most clickbait garbage ever. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're finally going to give an update on everything that's been happening with YouTube because we finally got sort of an update from YouTube, and well, let's get right into it. So first off, a little bit of a backstory if you're not familiar with the whole situation. Basically about a month ago, out of nowhere, half of the views, or half of my daily views rather, on my channel pretty much just disappeared from 1 hour to the next. Didn't make any sort of logical sense, so I reached out to YouTube and I reached out to some social media analysts to look into the situation to try to figure out exactly what was happening with the channel. YouTube didn't have any answers, and they basically just closed my ticket, which was really frustrating. And yeah, they didn't give me any answers. The social media analysts looked at it and they go, this is some sort of weird system thing. YouTube needs to figure it out, so you need to keep hammering on YouTube till you get an answer. So that's what I've been doing for the last month, is just continually emailing and trying to chat with YouTube. And if you guys don't know, even for creators, there's not a real person that you can talk to on the phone with YouTube. You can only chat with an online chat or email with them, which again is something that I'm pretty annoyed with, because I feel like, especially for problems, I should be able to talk to a real life human being. But obviously in our tech age, that's not really a thing anymore. And so yeah, that's really what it's been for the last month, is just trying to figure out exactly what happened. And it's not like this continuous thing. What will happen is basically, and I have it exactly timed, is my channel will run normal for 2 weeks, and then for 4 days and 6 hours, exactly that amount of time, my views will cut in half, and then they'll jump back up to normal again for 2 weeks, and then 4 days and 6 hours, they'll be down. So it's an exact timing thing, and that's why it really looks like it's something systematic, is because it's basically time-based versus being something that is not time-based, if that makes sense, right? If my views just were slowly declining, okay, then that means people don't want to watch my videos anymore. Or on the other side, if my videos drop down in views all of a sudden, and then they stayed down for a certain amount of time and it changed every single time, then that probably again is content related. But when it's exactly 2 weeks between these events, and the events last for exactly 4 days and 6 hours, that shows it's systematic. Well, after hammering YouTube for the last month, I finally got a real answer, and they did admit that there's something going wrong with the channel, and they think it has to do with the recent changes they've made to the algorithm. So again, I'm glad that they finally admitted that there is something going on. And I mean, I've had the channel open for a little bit over 3 years now, and I've never had anything like this happen before. So obviously that's why I was kind of so on top of it and just wanting a real answer, because it didn't make any logical sense. And yeah, so they finally admitted that there is a bunch of changes with the system, and it has caused issues with my channel. If you guys don't know, YouTube is constantly rolling out changes with the algorithm to try to squeeze as much money as they can out of advertising, because ultimately that's what they're in the business to do. And none of these changes have ever negatively impacted me until now. And there's been a few changes that they've made, and I kind of mentioned this in another video where they recently made a change where basically their system goes a little bit more in depth to check your videos to make sure that your videos are appropriate. And I've never had any of my videos flagged. And this is something that I even asked YouTube, is I asked them, hey, did I do something wrong? Did I say something in a video? Did I get reported? anything? And YouTube came back and said, no, you have never had any sort of strikes against you. You haven't had any complaints that have gotten to us, nothing. I am as clean as it gets for a channel, which I mean, I try to keep things that way on purpose, because I don't want to have to deal with the drama that some of these channels have to deal with when they decide to go that route and do things that are a little bit controversial. So that's not the issue. The issue is here basically lies with what they've pushed content-wise after these changes. So I had to do a little bit of research to actually get a full answer after YouTube admitted to, yes, we've changed a lot of things over the last few months, and these changes are negatively impacting you. Some creators, everything's the same, and other creators have benefited from it. And basically what's been happening is, and you guys have noticed this, I've noticed this because I watch YouTube, is YouTube has increased the amount of advertisements that are on the platform, and it's been a pretty large amount. I mean, I remember when I first started making videos 3 years ago, how many ads were in a video versus now there's so many more ads in the videos. Well, the increase in advertisements has increased some other stuff. So there's a lot more people with ad blocker because of the increase in advertisements. But then on top of that, there is less watch time on most channels across the board. Now, some channels, their watch time has been unaffected. My channel is one of those. My watch time hasn't changed whatsoever. It's actually gone up. So I guess it's actually positively benefited. But yeah, that's been the major impact with this whole advertising thing, is it has basically made it so that people aren't watching videos for as long because they don't want to have to watch all these advertisements, or they're getting ad blockers to block the ads. But on top of that, a lot of channels have been getting less views because people just don't even want to watch the content because they know they're going to have to watch this many advertisements in a video and they don't even want to deal with it. And so YouTube has rolled out changes to basically fight this whole thing with the advertisement situation. I guess I should have probably put this disclaimer a little bit earlier, but a lot of this is my personal inferences after, again, talking with YouTube, talking with other YouTubers, and doing a little bit of research myself. So again, this isn't necessarily 100% factual, right? This is, think of me as like a reporter reporting on a situation and giving you all the information I know and then making my own educated guesses on what exactly is happening. So here's what it seems like is what's happening. YouTube obviously has rolled out more advertisements. More advertisements has led to lower view duration on most channels. Not all channels, but most channels. Lower view duration and lower click-through percentage. So people are basically watching less videos and they're watching them for shorter amounts of time, and there's more people that are fully blocking advertisements on YouTube. And so what this has in turn led to is YouTube to change their algorithm and change the content that they're pushing forwards towards people. Now, what would that in turn do to affect me, and what kind of content are they pushing? That's the funny part now. Now, for all of these factors, it has pushed YouTube to push sensationalized content more than anything else because of the decline in views and because of the decline in view duration. And if you guys go look at pretty much any big channel on YouTube, you can look at the views, and some channels, again, are unaffected and some are going up. But for the most part, when you look at most channels, compared to the views that they were getting a year or 2 years ago versus now, they're significantly less. Like every single channel is pretty much on this, slow decline. Now, my channel hadn't had that happen because I've been producing more videos. And since I'm kind of a newer channel, right, you kind of have that slow rise. And so over the last while until this whole situation happened last month, my channel was, pretty much relatively stable and then slowly going up over time. But because of like all the aforementioned reasons, YouTube is now continually pushing this sensationalized content more and more. And so it's hurting creators like me that don't post sensationalized content. And what I mean by sensationalized content is YouTube's going to show people videos that have those really clickbaity titles and thumbnails and all that because they know that the person's going to click on it more often and that they're going to at least see one advertisement at the beginning of the video, and that's better than people not seeing any advertisements and watching an entire video because they have ad blocker or other things and all that kind of stuff. And so that's really the biggest change with these changes that have been rolled out. Does this mean I'm all of a sudden going to start making all these crazy sensationalized video titles and clickbait and all that kind of stuff? No, I'm not going to do that. It just means that I basically have to reshape things, like I've said in previous videos, and I just have to go about things a little bit different than I did in the past. So now I basically can't rely as much on YouTube as an income source. So I'm going to have to push Patreon a lot more on the channel. Again, that's another way to make income for YouTubers. And then I'm still posting this stuff on Facebook. Again, Facebook's kind of a weird situation because Facebook's even worse than YouTube with sensationalized content. Like on Facebook, unless your video is the most clickbait video of all time, it doesn't get any views on Facebook because Facebook's just like this fire. It's so crazy. It's like every single video that I like purposefully clickbait on, and I try not to do that because again, it's not good for viewers and all that kind of stuff, but every so often every YouTuber does it, right? It's just part of the business. But when I post those videos on Facebook, they blow up. But the normal videos that I post on YouTube that blow up, they'd never blow up on Facebook. It's kind of a weird situation, but YouTube is kind of starting to be more like Facebook, if that makes sense, where, again, they're pushing that sensationalized content that makes people frustrated, but also content that people are going to click on more often so they can at least get that one ad view versus getting no views because the view duration's going down, because the click-through percentage, because everything's going down basically. And so that means that, yes, I do have to kind of restructure things, and I have to push other things, other ways to make money for the channel so that I can keep things going. So again, if you want to support the channel, I have a link to the Patreon in the description of the newer videos and also in the About page. So yeah, if you want to help things keep going on the channel, then go and follow the Patreon. I basically just give updates on the channel that I don't give on the actual channel itself, and then I give sneak peeks to things that are coming in the future. So if you guys want to see that stuff, it's going to be on Patreon, and then also it really helps out the channel considering all these crazy changes that have been rolled out. Obviously, I have an opinion on all this, and I'm going to give you guys my honest opinion at this point. So first off, I don't think it's necessarily the right way to go about things. I think that how they had the previous system set at was actually really good because, yes, those clickbaity videos still got views for the channels that do that kind of stuff, but then channels like mine that are completely transparent with the titles, that don't do any sort of flashy stuff, still got good views because it appealed to a different demographic of people. There's people that don't want anything to have to do with sensationalized titles. They just want solid information. They just want honest information. They just want something that is exactly what it appears to be. And again, my titles just really show that, right? Whenever I title a video, it's like the model year, the make, and it's the model of the vehicle, and then it's the trim package. And then, you know, I always do like a question or something that's kind of like my hook, right? To pull people in to watch the video. But I try to be super transparent with the video titles so that people know exactly what they're getting themselves into, versus now what YouTube's doing is like, they're like, yeah, you know what? That's a thing in the past, unless it's like some sensationalized title, crazy question, like what I did with my video when this whole situation happened where I'm going, oh, I'm being forced to quit YouTube. That video got a lot of views because it was a sensationalized thumbnail and title. But then when I make a regular car review that's something that's actually beneficial information-wise to people, it's not going to get pushed out because it doesn't have that clickbaitiness. And so I don't think it's the right way to go. I understand why they're doing it. Again, for all the other reasons that I mentioned in the past, because view duration is going down, because click-through percentage is going down, because there's so many more advertisements on YouTube, and the amount of advertisements is leading to those two things. Again, that's kind of my inference. But because all that stuff's going down, I understand why YouTube's doing it so that they can still have a viable business. I don't think it's the right thing to do long term. Yes, in the short term, it might benefit YouTube. They might be able to make a little bit more money, but I think it's going to turn people off from the platform long term. I just don't really think that this is the best thing long term. Now, obviously, YouTube can do whatever they want, but I can tell you guys from my personal experience as someone who watches YouTube videos, obviously I make them, but I also watch them, so I can tell you guys from both aspects. I watch less YouTube now. It's not actually because of the advertisements. I was actually fine with the advertisements because for the most part, most advertisements are skippable. And if they're not skippable, they're only like 5 seconds long. And so it's like no big deal. I didn't really care about it. The thing that's caused me to watch less YouTube is the content that's been recommended to me within the last 2 months has been the most clickbait garbage ever. And so I find myself opening the YouTube app and I'm like, oh, cool, what's happening? And then every single video I get recommended ends up being sensationalized clickbait. So then I find myself not wanting to watch videos on the platform anymore because I'm like, I don't want to do that. And then the amount of work that I have to do to actually find good content now is so much harder. And so as like a YouTube viewer, I find myself not wanting to watch stuff on the app as much. And then as a content creator, since it pushes me to make content that's not only going to frustrate people, but is just not going to be as like, I don't know, satisfying long term, it kind of, again, pushes me away. Obviously, again, YouTube's the largest video platform out there, so quitting YouTube is just stupid. You can't really do that unless you get paid out some massive amount by another organization. Like with Joe Rogan, for example, he left YouTube because he got paid out $100 million by Spotify. That's not going to happen anytime with a car reviewer. But I will say that it definitely makes it less appealing, and it makes me not want to recommend it as much to people to like do as a career with that kind of stuff, because it's like, it's the best thing that I've ever done, but it's also becoming the worst thing that I've ever done. So it's kind of like this weird, thing. And I mean, I'm just going to continue to ride it out for as long as I can. But I definitely, I think that even though this move might benefit YouTube in the short term financially, I think it's going to hurt them long term, because again, of all the reasons that I just mentioned. Now that's going to sum things up for today's video. And again, like I've said in previous videos, I'm going to keep doing things for as long as I can, for as long as I can make sense of doing them. Hopefully YouTube decides to not do this for a super long period of time. Hopefully they get some negative kickback for it, and then they realize, okay, this is not the best thing to do. Let's kind of change and do things kind of more in the middle ground, where we recommend sensationalized content, but then also we recommend, you know, good wholesome content that doesn't trick people into watching it, right? So again, hopefully that happens. But yeah, other than that, I'm going to continue to do things as long as I can. Again, if you want to support the channel, link to my Patreon in the description below, also in the about page of the YouTube. I'd really appreciate it at this point. And yeah, I'll see all of you guys in that next video.